This afternoon concludes my 3-day visit that I have undertaken this week here to Zimbabwe at the invitation of His Excellency the President. And let me begin by saying that my visit marks the first visit by a senior UN official for quite a number of years, and in this particular moment it is also a signal that in the United Nations we have taken the President's call for free, fair and credible elections with no violence as a very serious signal that Zimbabwe is at a crossroads. The preparatory process for these elections have been supported by the United Nations and also here in country in particular by the United Nations Development Programme, as they are also being supported by both different departments within government, civil society organizations and international partners. Our interest and our commitment is to help the people of Zimbabwe to prepare for a free, fair and credible election without violence, ensuring that this election is first and foremost an election for Zimbabwe, by Zimbabweans, and therefore to also be guaranteed and implemented by Zimbabweans. It was my principal interest to meet with representatives of government, but also, as our resident coordinator just mentioned, with a broad section of Zimbabwean society, from the constitutionally mandated commissions, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, clearly with a key role to play over the coming months, but also with Zimbabwe's Human Rights Commission, the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, the Gender Commission. This morning I also had the privilege of meeting with leaders from across the spectrum of civil society organizations and the business community. And in addition to that, I also met with representatives of all political parties represented in Parliament. All this was part of the invitation that I had received to meet and engage through the United Nations in this preparatory process that will help Zimbabwe achieve a milestone in its own journey towards economic recovery, national unity, and therefore a vision and a perspective for the future development of this nation. The United Nations is a major partner to Zimbabwe and its people for decades. And just in the year 2017, the United Nations mobilized with its development partners over $400 million of investments across different sectors. Our focus is, at this very moment, to contribute to this preparatory process of a free, fair and credible election. But we are also engaged now and will engage in a more active manner also in the future in the economic recovery. This clearly is critical to the people of Zimbabwe and to the economy as a whole. The international community of development partners, but also investors across the world, have paid attention to the President's commitment that he made at the World Economic Forum in Davos, and since then on many other occasions. It was there that I first met with him in January and committed to visiting Zimbabwe to show the strong support that we will provide to this nation in the preparations of an election, but with a perspective particularly of economic recovery. Zimbabwe is a nation with enormous potential, beginning with its citizens, an educated population that has enormous potential to lead this nation into a different development future. The sectors from agriculture to mining to power to tourism, just to mention a few, represent significant potentials both in terms of domestic opportunities but also international investment opportunities. In my discussions with His Excellency the President, but also with a range of ministers within government, I offered also the support of the United Nations system and of the United Nations Development Programme in assisting government in looking at the opportunities for investment, particularly with a view to ensuring that small-scale farmers, small and medium-scale enterprises, which currently represent the backbone of Zimbabwe's economy, will also have the attention in a future economic recovery strategy. It is essential that people's livelihoods and their ability to earn an income, to find jobs, remains at the center of Zimbabwe's development strategy. It is our commitment within the United Nations and the international community, I believe, with growing interest, to both support this preparatory process for the election as a way to re-engage and therefore enable the citizens of Zimbabwe to have a more positive outlook on the future than they have had in recent years. Let me end by saying that I also took the time to visit a voter registration center where the new biometric voter registration system was in action. It was my privilege to witness a 19-year-old Zimbabwean man registering to vote for the first time in his life. A tremendous responsibility on the part of the Electoral Commission to ensure the transparency of this electoral process, a unique right of every Zimbabwean citizen to exercise their right to vote, and also an opportunity for us in the international community to be of assistance to Zimbabwe in this process. This morning I also took time to leave Harare and visit a polyclinic outside of Harare, where we also could provide a demonstration of what the support that we already provide in many parts of the Zimbabwean development process is taking place. In this polyclinic, we have, together with the support of the Global Fund that is of particular assistance to Zimbabwe in providing antiretroviral treatments for HIV-infected persons, has now facilitated the installation of a solar PV photovoltaic power source. This will enable this polyclinic to have a cold chain for vaccines, to provide lighting when women give birth to children at night, and also enable that center to function much more effectively. This is just one of over 400 health centers that we are now providing with this kind of technology that will hopefully make what has been already a strong track record in the health sector provide even better services to the citizens of Zimbabwe in the years to come.